he just can't get away, is our own Brian Windhorst, who joins us this morning. Hello, Windy.
Can I just say something about Jordan Spieth yesterday real quick? I recognize the incredible greatness of him going 5 under par after that bogey. That was some of the greatest championship golf you're ever going to see. But that drop that everybody's going crazy about, talking about legendary, he took a drop with a one-shot penalty and dropped the ball on short grass on flat ground. This wasn't like the most difficult shot in the history of golf. It was a long shot. He dropped it on fairway on flat ground. So let's not go overboard and say what an incredible bogey. It would have been just the same had he wedged it out sideways into the middle of the fairway, which was his other option, and made a bogey from there. So that's all I want to say. We'll move on.
I believe he was on the driving range, if I'm not mistaken. Now, Windy, of course, knows this intimately because what is your index, by the way? We've never played golf. We've never talked about golf. Are you a golfer?
Yes, I was a high school golfer, and I've played a number of the British Open rotation courses. I have not played Royal Birkdale, and I love playing over there. It's tremendous. But I'm just saying, I think we're going a little bit crazy about the drop. He dropped the ball on fairway. I realize it was the driving range, but essentially it was fairway. It was a good use of the rules. Why he needed 25 minutes, I don't know. Why people are going crazy about it. I mean, Ernie Els once won the British Open when he hit the ball out of a bush and made bogey. Now, if he'd hit the ball out of a bush, let's have a different conversation. That's all I'm going to point out. I don't want to derail us here.
Windy coming with the fire this morning for golf. Forget free agency, man. Who else you got in golf? Who else you want to put the flame to?
I'm not going to put anybody. I'm just saying, like, he had a 230-yard shot, which is for a professional golfer an easy shot off flat ground. That's all I'm saying. After that, his 5 under par, brilliant. I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm taking it away from people who are making it out like it was one of the greatest moments in the history of the Open Championship.
Okay, fair enough.
I love fired up golf, Windy.
Me too. This is a side of Windy we had not seen before. Let's work out. Maybe this is Windy who's aggravated. I saw you the other day basically asking the NBA offseason to stand down because it's got to be interfering with whatever plans, golf and otherwise, you had for the latter part of July, which is not supposed to be this kind of insane.
Okay, so Kyrie Irving has thrown the NBA into a tumult. There's a bunch of NBA executives who are like ready to go on vacation. Their families are out at the beach and they're now on the phone making trade offers to the Cavs. One thing I want to point out, because I'm seeing a lot of pushback all across the spectrum, which is what we see in these situations. Kyrie Irving is like any average American, businessman who's number 2 in his organization and wants to be number 1. He's like every assistant coach on the bench in the NBA, every assistant coach walking on the sideline, standing behind the guy with the headset in the NFL. He wants to be number 1. And, sometimes you go backwards or downwards or to a weaker team or to a lesser team to be in that position. I mean, nobody would look at somebody who was an assistant manager at a big grocery chain who went down to a family-owned chain to be the manager. Nobody would look at that sideways. So I totally get what Kyrie Irving is doing here. I openly admit that playing with LeBron James can be very frustrating at times. Most people would think that the side effects are manageable considering the overall thing that he does. But okay, Kyrie doesn't feel that way. I question Kyrie's timing, because I feel like the Cavs still have 1 year left of a great run, and if the Warriors stumble or there's an injury, they could hold another championship. And I wonder why Kyrie wouldn't want to go through one more year. But hey, I'm not in his skin. He can make the choice. I think he's threatening his legacy a little bit here because he may view himself more like Kobe. Other people in the league view him more like Stephon Marbury, who broke up with Kevin Garnett and was never had the same opportunities in the NBA. But okay, let him go out and do it on his own. I question his timing, but okay, he's going to do it now. And he's an incredibly attractive player, not only because he's 25 years old and an all-star, but this is something that's very important, especially in today's NBA. He is a marketable star. He is more marketable in some ways than Paul George and Jimmy Butler. He may not be a better player than those guys, because those guys play both ends of the court, but this guy is one of the most popular players in the world. His shoes sell very well. He attracts very well to young fans. And I'm going to just say that there are owners who are going to salivate at the business opportunity of trading for Kyrie Irving, and the Cavs' eyes are wide open on that, and that's going to affect their trade talks.
For the Cavaliers, does that not affect maybe their desire to keep him, knowing that they could lose LeBron? Because this falls under the precedence of players we've seen trying to call the shot. Is there any worry on the side of ownership? Dan Gilbert may be saying, no, we're going to push back a little bit and regain some of the control of the way this offseason's working.
This is the era in the NBA, man. I mean, the players have control. Paul George is vitally important to the Pacers' business. The Pacers are going to suffer dramatically this year at the gate and with their television ratings locally because Paul George is not on the team. They did not want to trade him, but they had to because ultimately Paul George has the power. And Kyrie Irving has the power here. He realizes that. He went in, made a power play. The Cavs are going to have to trade him. I don't think there's any timeline on it. I just heard what you guys said with Bomani. I don't think they'll put a training camp timeline on it. Obviously, you'd rather have it done. But one of the things that teams make mistakes when they trade stars is when they create artificial timelines. There's only one timeline in the whole league, and that's the trade deadline, which is not until February. So obviously the Cavs don't want to drag it out, but they're not going to present any front that they've got to get this done in any frame of mind, in any frame of time.
All right, so what is a deal that's out there that could theoretically make sense? I know I'm going to take you to a place you hate going, which is speculating, but if we just look, for example, at the teams that you have reported he says he's interested in, one of them is the Knicks, and the Knicks have two interesting pieces here. One of them is Carmelo, who's been associated with LeBron in Cleveland forever. The other is the young Porzingis, who some think is the next NBA superstar, and Phil Jackson was looking to trade. So is there a match to be made in either of those two pieces?
Well, based on my conversations with people in the Cavs organization, I do not think they are looking for a player that is at the back end of his prime or maybe past his prime. So I'm looking at all these people who are coming up with trade scenarios for Carmelo Anthony. They're coming up with trade scenarios for Eric Bledsoe, a guy who has had 3 knee surgeries. I think the Cavs want a player who is young but is also not a rookie. And the player that fits that bill more than anything, in my mind, is Andrew Wiggins. This is a guy who, in my estimation, would be an all-star in the Eastern Conference next year, plays the wing position, which is what they need, especially what they need against the Warriors, plays both ends of the court, and is young. And you can not only count on him to be a 20-point-a-game scorer and defend, but also be around with you for the next decade, and you control his contract. Porzingis would kind of fit that mold, but I don't see why the Knicks would trade Porzingis for Kyrie Irving. I certainly wouldn't if I were the Knicks, and if I were the Cavs, I sure as hell wouldn't do a deal for Kyrie Irving where my prize back was Carmelo Anthony at this point in his career. And LeBron has made it clear he's going to keep his hands out of it. That doesn't mean he won't get on the phone with the guy they might trade for so that they can talk about what would happen. He's not going to turn his phone off, but LeBron is not going to be sitting there next to Kobe Altman, the GM, and saying, get me this guy and not that guy. The Cavs are going to have to make this deal with a focus on their future and their future. And so I got to believe they're looking for more of a player like Wiggins, who is not brand new into the league, but also still young. And unless the Knicks are willing to go to Porzingis, I don't think there's much of a conversation.
That's a really interesting one. We brought up Wiggins a little bit earlier today. You think Minnesota does that?
Now, they didn't make him available for Jimmy Butler. The package that they gave for Jimmy Butler was basically prospects and a top 7 draft pick. And so, to me, I think Jimmy Butler is a more valuable player than Kyrie Irving because, again, he plays the wing position, which is more desired, and he plays at both ends of the court. I got to tell you, I respect Kyrie Irving's incredible offensive talent, and he's especially valuable in playoff settings because he can create his own shot in those vital moments. But he is a swinging gate defensively. He is a horrible defensive player. And if he's going to want to be the centerpiece of a franchise, he's going to get that light shined on him a little bit. But if you're evaluating him versus Jimmy Butler is probably the more valuable piece. And if you weren't willing to give up Andrew Wiggins to get Butler and you were still able to get him, I don't know why you'd make him available for Kyrie. That said, getting the thought of having Kyrie Irving, who says he wants to be in Minnesota, and let's not just move past that like it's nothing. Some player, a star player in the NBA, says he wants to be in Minnesota. This is headline stuff material in the Twin Cities. But the concept of Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving and Karl Towns with some good supporting players, that team all of a sudden looks like it's a top 4 team in the Western Conference, and we're talking about a team that hasn't been to the playoffs in 13 years. That situation may make Tom Thibodeau stutter a little bit and say, wait a minute, maybe we should look at this. But I know that their owner, Glenn Taylor, has not wanted to trade Andrew Wiggins in the past.